Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for joining us on today's session. My name is Valeria Meneses, and as part of the Bosch marketing team at Fire Alarm Systems, I give you the warmest welcome to today's session. Today, we will talk about one of the many reasons why to choose Bosch Fire Alarm Systems. Before we actually begin with our webinar, some brief considerations for today's session. This webinar is being recorded and it will be available to all of you to watch afterwards on YouTube and our learning platform. Therefore, all of your microphones have been muted so that we can ensure good audio quality. However, you feel free to ask any questions that you have during all of the presentation in the Q&A section. This section will be available throughout all of the session, and then we will answer all of your questions, or we'll try to answer all of your questions at the end of the presentation. And now we can move on to today's content, which will be presented by my colleague, Florine Bucour, Application Design Manager. Florine, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Valeria. Welcome all from my side as well. I'm just going to start sharing. I hope you all see my presentation now.
Yes.
Thank you very much for confirming. So welcome to this 25 plus reasons to choose Bosch Fire Alarm Systems. It's a new content we are doing, and I will run you through it today. We prepared for you, let's say, more than 25 reasons. Let's see how much time we'll have to go and how far we should reach by the end of the presentation. But just as a background, how did we end up with this content? So we looked at our portfolio, and we looked at our strongest points in our products in our system. And from that, we derived benefits that our stakeholders get out of this. So basically, these are, let's say, the returns to you, the benefits that you have, no matter that you are a system integrator, a designer, or I don't know, the end user or the beneficiary of our system and our products. So what we did with these benefits, we tried to cluster them in different categories. Of course, if you look and force it down, it will all come to the total cost of ownership. But I thought this is, let's say, beneficial to cluster them in three categories. And we have first, benefits regarding reliability of our products. Of course, we want to provide a fast and accurate fire detection system with minimal false alarms, and we will have reasons that prove this. We also want to offer a future-proof system, and this, of course, has to adapt to your needs now, but also in the future, and get the most out of your investment. And finally, we have benefits that are added as additional services, better services that can contribute on the long run to save costs. Throughout the presentation, you will see in the top left which of this category it's highlighted, right? We're talking about one of the features that translates into benefits, and you'll have the either reliability, future-proof, value-adding, or actually two of them can also be possible. Good. So let's dig in the content. And what better way to start than our dual rate technology? We're talking about our point detectors here, the Avenir 4000 range. And in this family of detectors, we also have our dual rate technology. You will recognize them very easily because the DO letters are in the product code always, highlighting that there's a dual optical detection. And what happens is that in the optical chamber for the detector, we have always two LEDs that are operating to detect smoke, but on two different wavelengths. And this, combined with the intelligent signal processing, the ISP feature, basically will give you a very fast detection with minimum false alarms. So ISP functions like this. We collect data from the sensors in the detector. That could be optical sensors, could be heat detection, could be carbon monoxide detection, chemical detection, and the ISP creates patterns that are trained to recognize really, really fast if this is a real fire scenario or not. So these two LEDs with different wavelengths basically give more information to the ISP algorithms, and this way you get an even more accurate detection with a very fast processing time. Of course, this translates into less interruption because you don't get false alarms, and that means your business has more continuity. Staying in the same area with the detectors, with the point detectors, moving to number 2, and we're talking here about the e-smoke feature. What happens is that all our point detectors in the Avenar 4000 family, they measure continuously these electromagnetic disturbances, and they calculate mid and long-term averages for these values. So whenever we want, we can check out these values and see the level of the disturbances in that specific point where the detector is installed. How does this help us? Well, of course, if we get a higher value than usual, it means there is something there, maybe an equipment, maybe some high current that creates too many electromagnetic disturbances. This, of course, can lead to false alarms. And let's not forget that EM disturbances, it's an invisible disturbance. You cannot see it. Of course, you can measure it, but you have to know it's there. And for traditional system, this is very hard to troubleshoot. That's why we offer this tool. You can, whenever you like, you can measure these disturbances, and you can even know or predict the changes before false alarms occurs. Staying in the same detection area, let's talk a little bit about Aviotech. Aviotech is our intelligent AI camera. It has internal algorithms for video analytics that will recognize flames and smoke at the source. It's a real fast detection method, and the let's say unique feature that this camera has are the fact that we don't have to wait for the smoke, for example, to reach the ceiling, like in case of the traditional methods. Even if we talk about aspirating systems or point detectors or beams, whatever we want to choose, normally you have to wait for the smoke to reach the ceiling. No, in case of Aviotech, you detect it at the source. You can detect both flames and smoke in the same time, and this gives you a very, very fast detection time. It's a very robust camera with very robust algorithms, and what's also making very special is that the algorithms are based on neural networks, and these can be trained for almost any scenario. So if you use this camera and you have, for example, a false alarm that is generated, and you see which is the cause because you have the video footage from the camera, then you can train with that video footage, or we can train actually that with that video footage the camera to ignore such a false alarm. And then it becomes even better in recognizing, let's say, real fire scenarios. It's ideal for challenging environments because of this, and where some other let's say detection methods are not very accurate or effective, like high ceilings or I don't know, warehouses, production plants with disturbances and so on. Right, but we don't have to also forget that this video fire detection, it's not regulated by EM54, right? So it's a complementary method of detection until there will be a chapter that can regulate video fire detection in EN54. And speaking about complementary services, we can also discuss here about the NexoSpace Fire System Explorer. And this is our newest platform for remote connection and for remote services. What it offers a few components that can add to your basic functionality of the system. You can manage the system remotely. You can connect with the programming software, for example, or for operation purposes to your system from distance. You can do predictive maintenance. You can do a one-man revision for the system, having this access to the platform. And also you can get messages on your terminal or on your mobile terminals, like mobile phones or tablets. All this comes in one package, and you will just need a gateway that's connected in the system to one of the panels, and then you can access all these remote services. Of course, I think it's obvious that it saves times and costs, especially because first, of the predictive maintenance, you have reports that are generated very fast, and you know before you're reaching the site what are the materials that you will need, if you need to replace any equipment or not, so you don't have to go there, see what's the situation, and then go back to your warehouse, get some materials, and come back to exchange. All this you can do directly via the platform before reaching the premises. And speaking about remote programming, let's talk a little bit also about our RPS software, our remote programming software, which is actually a free software that you can get from our website, and then you can start directly working with the equipment that you have from Bosch. And there's no additional restrictions or equipment that you need to operate this software. So it's a free software. There's no hardware key, no hardware device that you need. You straight connect to your panel and start working with it. It has a wide range of features from, of course, programming the system, basic functions, logical addresses, everything in one package. You can do the logic of the system, the fire metrics. You can even generate reports, graphical reports about the structure of the system. And yeah, we can even operate the system with this software. So everything in one package, no additional tools. You can just connect and use it either directly on site or via the remote portal from distance. And speaking about software, we come to one of my favorite softwares, which is the Safety System Designer. And this is might seem like a planning tool, which it is actually, in fact, but it also helps a lot of integrators making the, let's say, work a little bit faster, right? It guides you throughout the complete, let's say, process of designing a system, from the import of data from Excel sheets or even AutoCAD. You can automatically import, let's say, elements from an AutoCAD drawing, making sure that you do not pass any of the limits of the system. So basically it calculates everything for you, the loop current, the battery current for the panels, the actual components of the panel. It's made automatically for you, so you don't have to worry about, did I miss a cable, did I miss a module? Everything is put there for you in this software. And then, of course, you can go further and generate the bill of materials out of it. You can generate block schematics of the system. You can even generate tender text in the language that you want to use, because it supports a lot of local languages. Again, this is a free software that you can straight away. You don't need any hardware from Bosch to use it. You can just open your browser, type in Safety System Designer Bosch, and you will land on the page where you can download it. Again, this is very important because it validates the system for you, and it's making sure that the offer that you made for your customer, for example, it's a valid offer, that you don't miss anything out of it. And this becomes especially important when you put a panel together, because our system, it's a true modular system, and that means even the panel is built like a puzzle with the components that you need. You don't have to pay components that you actually never use in your project. Everything it's added as you need it. So it's of course you have the basic controller and then the casing, and then you have rails for the modules where you put whatever modules you need and how many you need. If the case is not big enough, you can add more cases, you can add more batteries, you can add whatever it's needed. This is also calculated for you by the safety system designer, so you don't have to do it yourself. But this is actually one of the unique selling points that we have, that indeed we have a true modular system. And it allows you in the future to scale it and expand it as you need it. You don't have to buy everything at once from the beginning. You can just add on your system in time. And we will see also the system capacities are helping with this modularity. We're going to see that a little bit later. Here it's also worth mentioning that our system it has a high degree of compatibility for the components between them. Even if we talk about peripherals or panel modules or whatever modules, it's a high degree of compatibility in both ways. So we can have, let's say, older components in a system that it's installed nowadays with the current portfolio, or you can, for example, retrofit current modules or products in existing systems. So it works both ways. Good. So talking about interfacing and modularity, it's also important to highlight one of our newest products here, which is part of the Avenar family. It's an interface module, an input-output module. It's called I2M1, and I think it's very important to highlight a little bit about it. Of course, we have a whole family of interface modules. We don't have time to go through all of them, but this is just the newest addition to it. And it's what makes it very special is that you can actually address a lot of applications with just one module. And why is this important? Because it's easier to keep stocks for one product, for example, with which you can address multiple applications, then have to have all these different type of modules in stock for when you need to use them. And few examples of this application are NAC zones or notification appliances like sounders and flashes that you can connect to it and control it, or for example magnet holders that you can use for the fire doors to keep them open and trigger them in case of fire. And of course, one of the most important one is the fire dampers. And for this, it's also another reason that it gives it so much range and flexibility is that you can control everything about this module through the remote programming software. Everything can be freely programmed. Like, for example, you can have a fail-safe position that you can program software. You can set up how the inputs and the output is monitored, if it's monitored or not, with the one resistor, double end of line or triple end of line. So everything that you need, it's really configurable about it. So this gives you a lot of flexibility for this. And also these functions like the fail-safe position or monitoring the position of the equipment that can be done. So inputs can be used as a feedback for the output, gives you a very reliable product. And you can use it again in multiple applications like NAC zones, damper, control, and so on. But talking about integration, it's not only about hardware integration, it's also about software integration. And we are very happy to also announce that end of last year, we introduced the BACnet server product, which adds to our current, to that point, options of integration. So basically, it offers now, together with the other methods, more variety of possibilities for integrating with other software platforms, like, for example, BMS systems or alarm server or other softwares, visualization softwares, for example, and BACnet, it's adding to the current protocols that we had at that point, which were OPC, OPC as an open protocol, FSI as our own proprietary protocol, and now we have BACnet in addition. So all these can also function in parallel, so that's also an option. And now it's even easier to integrate in different other softwares or platforms. And of course, to be able to do that, we also need hardware support. And for that, we came to one of the very important reasons that gives a lot of benefits for you, which are the fact that every controller from Bosch comes with a 4-port Ethernet switch embedded. That means you have not only one, but up to 4 ports that you can use for different purposes. For example, you can use 2 of them for networking, so you have a redundant network. You can use the other 2 for whatever services you need, like a data integration we were talking earlier, or like, for example, a remote portal connection for the gateway, or even voice evacuation systems integration via an IP. So this comes with no additional costs. Whenever you have a controller, you have these ports available, you can use them for whatever reason you have to. And speaking about panel networking, it's also worth mentioning the capacity of our panel network. And this is very important, especially for the scalability of the system. So we can accommodate up to 32 nodes, we call them, in our network. Those can be control panels, those can be operating modules, operating panels, sorry, or they can be servers, data servers like OPC, BACnet, and so on. This capacity of 32 really gives you a very wide coverage in terms of what applications you can address with our system, and also the flexibility of expanding in future. So you can have, for example, 16 panels already in a system, and there's always room to add more and more and more, up to 32. Yeah? And this 32 panel network basically covers, from our statistics, more than 98, almost 99% of the systems out there in the market. So that means you can basically, with one single level network, cover almost all the applications. You don't need a backbone network, you don't need additional equipment, you don't need network cards, other cabling, anything else, just the one level network, and that's enough. Of course, for the other systems where you need more than 32 nodes, we have also solutions, right? But this is usually beyond the capability of operation of one single point, or you need multiple, you need segmentation, and then we're talking different type of solutions. Good, but talking about the operation, a very nice aspect that I would like to highlight is the user interface that comes with our controllers. And we always talk about a color touchscreen, 7-inch wide, right? So really big screen that you can operate, which is freely programmable and customizable as a, let's say, layout and text, and of course available in the language that you need, if it's available, of course. This is important. None of the labels are static labels on the controller. They are only, let's say, language neutral icons that will indicate, let's say, events in the system, and the big touchscreen where you can operate it. This is very user friendly, and basically you don't have to spend too much time with training, because also the additional operating panels in the system, so all the control panels and also the keypads that you use in the system have the same layout. So it's once you know to operate one, you know to operate the whole system. And speaking about this and operation, I think it's very, very important that we also talk a little bit about eMatrix. And eMatrix is one of the functions that you get in our system where you can define groups for outputs, like, for example, NAC groups, notification appliances groups, or you can even define virtual outputs group, like, for example, voice evacuation outputs for data communication. And then you can group them together and use them as an item that you can control straight on the panel interface. That means, for example, if you have different zones in your PA system that you want to control, you can do that straight from the operating panel, right? You can activate all of them at once, or you can deactivate them all at once, or you can activate them manually one by one. Whatever you want, you can do that straight from the interface. There is also a dedicated button on the display for this menu and this function called eMatrix. How this translates in your benefit? Well, first of all, I think it's clear that it's a very easy operation of these groups of outputs for different purposes. And the second one, it can reduce a lot the hardware costs, because the traditional method for doing this in a, for example, dispatch center or operating center inside the building is to have a lot of call points on the wall with labels, and each of the call points is associated to triggering such an action. And instead of doing that, you can just have a menu on the panel, because we do have a big display, so everything is fitting there, and then you can scroll to whatever you want to control and straight out control it from the interface. Right, talking about our panel, it's also interesting to talk about the capacity. And we were talking about the network capacity earlier, and said we can have up to 32 nodes. That can be 32 panels in one network. But it's interesting to also point that each of the controller can manage up to 32 loops. And this is very important, because basically not only it gives you the flexibility and scalability, like, oh, I have a controller, I have 10 loops, I have 16 loops, doesn't matter, I want to add extra loops, and I still going to use the same controller, the same casing if there is enough space in the casing, or add additional casing for just for the loop models, and just expand my system, right? But it's also important because it lowers the costs with the processing power per peripherals. So that means I would need the same controller to control more peripherals than, let's say, other manufacturers in the market. You see the average is about 16 for the same class competitors. We're talking about big addressable systems, right? The average is about 16 loops per controller maximum. We can offer twice than that. And since we're talking about loops and loop communication, it's also a very important topic, right? Basically, when you run a loop through your building, you create a huge antenna that can be very easily disturbed whatever happens in the building. Nowadays, the buildings are just a busy place with electromagnetic fields, with radio waves, with absolutely everything put together, systems, smart systems, I don't know, high power systems and so on. And for that, we have a very robust loop communication to offer you. And that means you can use whatever the cable you want. It can be shielded, not shielded cable without compromising the reliability of the system. And this means that you will have minimum electromagnetic interference on the loop because of how our loop communication is built and how our protocol works. And that means you will have almost non-false alarms because of that. I would just not say zero because I think nobody tested all the foreseeable scenarios or unforeseeable scenarios. That's why I would say minimum false alarms that can be generated by such interference. And this is one of the, let's say, many reasons that integrators love our system, that the loop protocol is so solid, so reliable, that you can basically run it in very harsh conditions without any compromise. And speaking about loop communication, and the loops in general, I think it's very important to also mention the addressing methods that we have. And here we offer any options on the table. That means you can have an automatic addressing of your peripherals on the loop, or you can have manual addressing with the rotary switches on the devices, so it's like an analog setting of the address. Everything is possible. The loop works in many ways, and because of that, you can have a lot of topologies available to you, like, for example, loop topology, line topology, but please be aware of the limitations of the line topologies, right? It's maximum 32 detectors or 10 call points. You can also have T branches very easily set in our loop topology. So that's basically not too many limitations here. And that gives you a lot of flexibility during the installation or even retrofitting of buildings, right? There are some scenarios where you will not be able, for example, to change the complete cabling, right? And then you might want to stick to some restriction that the building offers, and then this would help you a lot. Because if you restrict it to just, for example, loop automatic addressing, then that's big trouble, right? Right, and also adding to the reliability of the peripherals and the loop communication, we come up with the short circuit isolators. All our peripherals are equipped with short circuit isolators as standard. There's no external, there's no peripherals without it. And that means of course, it can contribute a lot to the reliability of the system in general, and tolerance to defects that can appear, especially regarding the cables. But not only cables, for example, water infiltrations could be a problem, and so on. And these are, of course, certified short circuit isolators. So after EM54, of course, standards. And it's very important also to mention they are bidirectional isolators, because some manufacturers just offer one-way isolators. So depending on where is the fault, before or after the equipment, it might put out of the use that said equipment, right? So in our case, one single defect will not put out of use any of the peripherals on the loop. So that, of course, increases the reliability of the system overall. Right, and I think it's a very good moment, speaking about peripherals, to also highlight our other point detector family, which is the AFP 520 series, which we call popularly the invisible detector. And this is because it's a flat detector that it's mounted, it's flush mounted, and there's no physical optical chamber. Everything happens at the surface or below the surface of the detector at about 5 centimeters. And you would see actually here the LEDs and the receptors for this optical detection. And then there's no need to have, let's say, all these optical labyrinth and everything because of the way the detector is built. And because of that, I think it's one of the very loved products by architects. It has a minimum aesthetic impact on the design or the interior design of the buildings. And also it can be personalized in a lot of colors. These white circles that you see, they can be ordered in so many different colors that you can match it with the interior design. But this is not the only good part about it. It's not only about the design, it's also about maintenance. These detectors are really, really easy to maintain because, first of all, they do not accumulate dust. They do not have the optical chamber, the physical optical chamber, so they will not accumulate the dust. And they can also just be simply wiped with a cloth to be cleaned. So that basically makes them very fitting for different applications, like applications with a heavy dust or clean rooms where it's very important not to store the dust in the optical chamber and so on. So that's let's say one of the unique products that Bosch can offer in a fire system portfolio. Moving on, let's talk a little bit about materials because I think it's important. Very often, Bosch goes beyond what the normative requires, be they, let's say, European norms or local norms or whatever the constrictions come from, even VDS norms, which are more strict usually about than the N54. There are a lot of requirements. So of course, we go by these requirements all the way, 100%, but we go beyond them. And one of the things that can prove this is how our products are manufactured and constructed and designed, right? With no exposed PCBs that can be then damaged accidentally or degraded in time because of the, let's say, external factors. So everything is designed and constructed that it can be easily protected and from this accidental damage. And we can talk about detectors for this. We can talk about panel modules. All the time is the same philosophy in mind when the product is designed. And that adds as a benefit to a very increased lifespan for this. And not only for the detectors, but also for the panel modules, like I said. And speaking about detectors, one of the nice smart features that we have is the detector lock. And it's one of the, let's say, features that comes as a standard for all our Avenir 4000 product range. It's included in the detector price. You don't have to get, let's say, small parts additionally or whatever. And it's a very nice feature to prevent and very easy way to prevent system faults by removing the detectors, for example, in public places, right? So basically you cannot remove these by the public coming into the location and then generate faults in the system. It's not only about the faults, but of course, doing that will also create a huge risk for the lives of the people in that public place because then it's not going to be protected. So I think that's very important to us. And I'm sure this function is very appreciated by all the people who install this kind of equipment in public places. And I was talking a little bit earlier about the invisible detector, the flat detector, and how easy it can be maintained, but also this easy maintenance, it's possible for the Avenir 4000 detector range. Because all of them, they come with this plug on the bottom of the detector, where you can connect, compress the machine, and clean the detector. That's right, you can clean the detector. You don't have to replace it when, I don't know, the lifetime of the detector is supposedly be ended. You just can clean up the detector and keep using it. So I think it's a very clear sign that we want to build equipment with a big lifespan, with a let's say optimal lifespan that gives you the possibility. Either, of course, you can replace them if they are if the need is there, but if it's not needed, you can just clean them easily and keep using them. And I think this is important for all the end users out there to basically make sure they get maximum out of their investment in the fire alarm system. Also, a very important fact for us is that you can paint the detectors. So basically, this is an option that you can get for, again, architectural reasoning to fit into the interior designs. And then these detectors can be applied. So there is a procedure that it's FODIS approved, and then you can apply any paint that's fitting to this casing of the detector, and then you have it fitted for your needs in the interior design. One more reason that we can talk about, it's related to the Avenara all-in-one product. And this is actually quite an impressive product if you think about it. It's a notification appliance that contains a sounder and a flash. It is addressable, so you can connect it to our addressable loop. And it has a very, very high energy efficiency and low consumption. And that means you can add a lot of these devices on a loop with a traditional current that it's available. So that means if you also want figures, you can basically add up to 125 devices on a single loop and still can get 1 kilometer of cable with 0.8 traditional fire cable. Also, what's important about it, it can also function as a detector base. So basically, if you remove this small cap here, you can get a detector base underneath where you can feed detector. I think I had earlier a nicer picture of the white variant with the detector on top of it. But look it up. It's called the all-in-one because you can have everything there, sounder, flash, and detector in one mounting point. And don't forget, it's addressable. So that's very important. It will not require additional cabling for the power. Everything is powered by the addressable loop. Of course, being so effective energetically, it reduces the costs because, first of all, if you have a high number of appliances, like, for example, a hotel application or a hospital or a commercial building, then the number of loops grows with the number of appliances or notification appliances. In this case, you can accommodate more of these devices on a single loop, so that reduces the number of the loops. It reduces the number of the controllers you need to manage the loops. So basically, it gives you a better control for this. Yeah, it also reduces cabling with the number of loops. I think that's obviously. And with the reducing cabling, you also reduce the work labor that you need to install this. Good. So that's all in one notification device, and I think we're very good on time. So I think we can even go past the 25 we had in mind. Speaking of notification appliances, we have here the uninterrupted version of some of the notification appliances in our portfolio. That means you can get a sounder, for example, in the traditional format or in the uninterrupted format. That means it comes with a built-in battery that ensures that if the loop communication is lost with the panel, it will continuously function, or even if the power it's broken, it will still continue to function, of course, for a limited time as the battery lasts. And I think that's very important when you talk about the reliability of the system, that you have covered almost all foreseeable scenarios in signaling the fact that there is a fire scenario in your building or in your location, and you want to reach out even if the, for example, fire damages the pathways to these signaling devices. Right, and speaking about cabling, it's also important to know that one of the aspects we always have in mind is the space for cabling. So whenever we talk about, for example, the panel and how it's constructed, when you have the modules on the rails, there's always enough space to do the cabling correctly and not be constricted by the space. And this we do also with the interface modules, with the peripherals, with the detector bases, and absolutely everything. We have this in mind, that you have the possibility to choose the type of cable first. Like I said, you can, even for the loops, you can use shielded, unshielded cable, but also have enough space to ensure that the technician that's on site, one, can install it very easily without spending too much time, and of course, flexibility in design when you choose which cable should be used for your system. And I think I'm going to stop here at the moment, right? Even if there are some more, I think, in the presentation, but I will stop here because let's give also some time for the questions if there are any. So, Valeria.
Yes, thank you. Firstly, thank you, Florin, for this very nice presentation. For all of you asking, I already can respond to this question that has come a bit more than once in the chat. We will share the presentation. We will share the recording of this webinar. It will be available in a few days, and you will all get the email so that you can access this recording. And of course, you can also contact Florin directly. Here is the QR code so that you can connect him via LinkedIn. And of course, you have also your local contacts of the Bosch colleagues in the different countries. And also, before we move on to the questions, that there are quite some in the chat, we invite all of you to follow us on our social media channel. So we have a new LinkedIn page, Bosch Life Safety Systems. So please scan the QR code or just look it up on LinkedIn and make sure to follow us so that you can follow up on our news and also make sure that you know all about our upcoming webinars and keep on the access to this valuable content that we constantly share with all of you. Lastly, also, before we move on to the questions, as you know, we always make sure to ask your feedback regarding these webinars. Your feedback is very important to us. We want to make sure that this is something that you find interesting. So please also scan this QR code and answer the question. I think it's like 3 or 4 questions very, very quickly, and it will help us a lot to improve. I will leave this here for a few seconds, and then I will move back to the last slide so that you can also have time to scan the web page, the LinkedIn page. And in the meantime, please, Florin, get to it because, as I said, there are some questions in the Q&A section.
Thank you, Valeria. I will do my best to answer as many as possible. but I will start, of course, at the top. And the first question I see is, can I connect the programming software remotely via IP without using NexoSpace? Unfortunately not. This is one of the components, the remote connect component of NexoSpace Fire Explorer. It's one of the components is allowing it to connect via IP from any location. You don't have to be on site. It can be also in a different geographical connection, but you would need NexoSpace Fire Explorer for that. Otherwise, you have to use a USB connection if you want to do it locally. That's also an option. And then you would not need NexoSpace for that. Good. Does SSD automatically verify that the design project meets EM54 standard, and what is the vision of the future development of SSD, particularly in relation to BIM workflows? That's a very interesting question. Thank you for that. It's yeah. First of all, SSD does a lot of verifications, and most of them are related to the mandatory chapters of EN54. It does not check for, yeah, let's say unharmonized chapters, which are not mandatory everywhere in the European Union or outside. Why not? But for everything that's mandatory, it does check against the EM54 standards. And regarding to the part 2, SSD, it's, I would say, even now, although there are years, a lot of years since it's on the market, it's very, let's say, in the it's very few potential unlocked, but about what it can do. It can be done with SSD. So Revit data exchange is one of the things that we consider, of course, like we have with AutoCAD now, and then you can import data. We are also working of exporting data in AutoCAD. That's also one thing that we are working on, and the same with the Revit, or maybe in the future, we're now focusing on Revit, but maybe in the future, maybe other BIM software platforms. So that's definitely on the road. I cannot tell you now very specific dates or actions that will be taken, but definitely it's on the road. And I think it's even beyond that, because we do have very nice plans about this concept of planning that also involves AI technologies and assisted, let's say, assisted designs by AI. But this will come later. I don't want to do any spoilers at the moment, but I think it will be a very great news when it comes out. Right. EVAC will get integrated with Bosch PA only, or any PA system. So the fire alarm system from Bosch can be integrated with Bosch system, with Bosch voice evac and PA systems via the smart safety link features that we have, which is an IP communication, but it can be integrated with other systems as well, maybe not in the same way, but of course, in the end, even a contact-based integration is still an integration. It just requires a different, let's say, level of effort that you will put into the integration itself. We do have data protocols as well. So we do have a very open protocol that can be used as an SDK to write any type of integration if you need. But that's, of course, up to how many time and engineering you want to invest into it. You can make it simpler or more complicated. Out of the box, it's available now for all the PA systems out there, contact-based, for example. Next on, can the system generate the fire metrics document? Yes, of course, it can be generated automatically from the RPS software, which is the free programming software that's available to you. After you build everything and program the system, you have the option to generate numerous reports including graphical schematics and including an Excel-based, if I'm not mistaken, fire metrics for the system. Can we get certificate of attendance for the webinar? I'm not sure. I think maybe Valeria, you can answer
I will
this.
reach out to them. Thank you, Florian.
Yeah, okay, good. Right. Is the video flame detection available for outdoor as well? Yes, we started with the video fire detection for indoors, and then we gradually expanded the use of these cameras, and now we moved a little bit outdoor with the shelter space, and now we started experimenting in completely outdoor scenery. So yes, it is possible, and this is, let's say, made possible by the fact that the neural network can be trained to be, let's say, filtering false alarms that normally, let's say, other traditional methods of algorithms could not do. Avenar LSN 1500A, does it support 2 class A loops with 254 detectors plus devices? Well, yes, the LSN 1500, it supports a loop topology, like I said. Also line topology is possible, but since we're talking now about loop, we're talking about a complete closed loop where you can accommodate up to 254 addresses, physical addresses, that can be any device, right? So for example, an 8 input interface only occupies 1 address out of these 254. But for example, an all-in-one device can occupy 2 or 3, even if you put a detector there, addresses on the loop. So it depends on the particularity of the peripherals. The limit is 254 addresses and in a loop topology. Let me scroll a little bit. Can we paint all spot detectors if it means point detectors? I hope that's a question. You can paint the case for the Avenar 4000 detectors. That's it. For the flat detector, you can use colored, let's say, colored devices that can personalize it, but it's not paintable. So just the Avenar 4000 casing. Hi, Cyril. Nice to see you again here. I see some known faces. And Avenar FDA panel, I think it's FPA, but now it's called Avenar. Does it support IPv6? Well, it's the IP communication of the Avenar panel. It's a closed one in the network, but regarding the service connection, it's using IPv4 because it's more spread out and more user-friendly. Yeah, if you want to put in the IPv6 address of a server, that will be quite difficult compared to an IPv4, and because of that, we are sticking to IPv4 now. We don't have the need yet for the IPv6, but this is always on, let's say, one of the possibilities that can be used in the future. I cannot answer you now, but now we don't see the need for it. 200 nodes in an Avenar panel network, how is it connected? That is not possible. If you have 200 nodes, you have to split in networks of maximum 32 nodes. When it will be available in porting configuration from RPS in SSD, that's hi Aurel, that's already in the work now. The migration of data between RPS and SSD, it's already let's say on the table of our engineers. I cannot give you a date, unfortunately, but yeah, the only news that I can tell you is that it's already working on it. Does this have a link on smoke detector, control panel, and sprinkler control panel? Okay, I hope I understand the question. So if this is, if our panel first cannot be used as a smoke control panel, if there's a special, let's say, certification needed for that. I forgot the name of the EN norm that regulates the smoke control, but it can also as a sprinkler, it's a CEA norm that it's used. We don't have these um, norms, but what we can do, and this I think is very important, is that we can extend the reliability of our detection in extinguishing zones, maybe sprinkler or gas detection or whatever kind of the extinguishing system we can use, because all the norms are separating the extinguishing device and extinguishing control with the detection part. So you can use the Bosch detectors with all this reliability also to cover extinguishing zones. I hope that's even close to the answer for the question. I hope I got it right. Do Bosch have work for inducing rate anticipation heat detection outdoor type? Again, I hope I understand the question right. We do not have a heat detection for outdoor in our portfolio, but we have ways to integrate any conventional external type of sensors in our system. So the interfaces range is broad enough to definitely say we can integrate other sensors or detectors that are not in our portfolio in our system through interfaces. And I think I rushed through it. I hopefully managed to answer as many as possible. I don't see any more questions in the chat. So we're right on time.
So I think it's time for us to close up this session. We thank you very much for your participation, and we hope that you find this information useful. Florine, thank you very much as well for your presentation.
Thank you also from my side and for your participation. And yes, see you. If there are any further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to your Bosch sales representative or me directly.
Wishing you everyone a very nice day.
Have a
Goodbye.
great day. Bye bye.